In a quiet countryside town surrounded by green hills and tall forests, there lived an old woodworker named Grandpa Joe. People from many villages knew him well because his wooden creations were not just tools or furniture. They looked like pieces of art. He could turn a simple piece of wood into a beautiful chair, a carved table, or even small wooden animals that looked almost alive. Villagers often said, "Grandpa Joe doesn't just work with wood, he understands it." Many young people wanted to learn from him, but Grandpa Joe always said the same thing. Woodworking is not only about strength. It is about patience, knowledge, and understanding nature. One day, two young men came to his workshop. Their names were Ethan and Jake. Both wanted to become skilled woodworkers. "Grandpa Joe," Ethan said politely, "please teach us your craft. We want to learn." Jake stood beside him and nodded confidently. Grandpa Joe looked at both of them for a moment. He smiled gently and said, "If you truly want to learn, come with me tomorrow morning. We will start your training." The trip to the forest. Early the next morning, the sun had barely risen when the three of them walked toward the nearby forest. The air was fresh, birds were singing, and sunlight was passing through the tall trees. Grandpa Joe stopped beside a large oak tree and began explaining. "This tree," he said, touching its bark, "is oak. It is strong and heavy, good for furniture that must last many years." Ethan listened carefully. He took out a small notebook and started writing down every detail. "What kind of wood is best for carving?" Ethan asked. Grandpa Joe smiled. "Soft woods like pine are easier to carve," he explained. Ethan nodded and wrote it down. Jake, however, looked bored. He leaned against a tree and yawned. "All this talking about trees," he complained. "Why don't we just start cutting wood? I'm strong. Give me an axe and I'll show you." Grandpa Joe looked at him calmly but said nothing. He continued explaining about different trees, how to choose wood, how to understand the grain, and how patience was the secret of great craftsmanship. Ethan listened carefully the entire time. Jake barely paid attention. Evening lesson. When the day was over, the sun began to set, and the sky turned orange and gold. Grandpa Joe sat down on a fallen log and asked both boys to sit beside him. "I want to tell you a short story," he said. Both Ethan and Jake listened. The story of the two travelers. Many years ago, Grandpa Joe began. Two travelers were walking through a dry and hot land. The sun was burning, and both men were extremely thirsty. After walking for a long time, the first traveler finally saw a well. His eyes lit up with hope. But when he reached the well, he realized something terrible. There was no bucket and no rope. The traveler looked inside the well and saw water far below, but he had no way to reach it. Frustrated and tired, he said, "This is useless." So he gave up and walked away, still thirsty. Later that day, a second traveler arrived at the same well. He was just as thirsty as the first man. He looked into the well and saw the water. Then he noticed there was no bucket and no rope. But instead of giving up, he began to search around the area. He walked through the grass and bushes. After some time, he found an old wooden bucket lying near some rocks. Then he gathered long grass and strong vines. Carefully and patiently, he began twisting the grass together, making his own rope. It took time. It took effort. But finally, he tied the rope to the bucket and slowly lowered it into the well. When he pulled it back up, the bucket was full of cool water. He drank deeply and finally quenched his thirst. Grandpa Joe looked at Ethan and Jake and asked, "Tell me, which traveler was truly thirstier?" Ethan thought for a moment and replied, "The second traveler." Grandpa Joe smiled. "And why do you think that?" Ethan answered, "Because he didn't give up. He searched for a solution and worked hard until he found a way to get the water." Grandpa Joe nodded. "Exactly, Grandpa." Joe looked at both boys carefully. "The same thing applies to learning," he said. "Some people want knowledge, but when it becomes difficult, they give up quickly." He looked toward Ethan. "But others are truly thirsty for knowledge. They listen, observe, ask questions, and keep searching until they understand." Then he looked toward Jake. "Thinking you already know enough is the biggest mistake a person can make." Jake lowered his head. For the first time that day, he realized something. His strength was not the problem, his attitude was. He had believed that skill came from muscles. But now he understood that real skill comes from knowledge, patience, and humility. Jake spoke quietly. "Grandpa Joe, I understand now. I want to learn properly. Please teach me again." Grandpa Joe smiled kindly. "It's never too late to start learning.